What is going on, everybody? How are we all doing? And welcome back today to another instalment of the F1 2016 Red Bull Racing Career Mode. That's a bit of a mouthful, I've got to admit, and today we have got another double header for you. Today we're doing Baku first. That is the new circuit on the F1 calendar. Of course, there's always been the European one, but I think every now and then, the European one changes, and this year it's changed to Baku, which is in Azerbaijan, I believe. After this one, we have then got the Austrian Grand Prix. I don't know why I said that so strangely, but the Austrian Grand Prix following this one. But the reason I'm doing two mod, I should first say, forgive me if the green screen quality is pretty poor, because this is the first time I've ever used it. It only arrived today. This is something that I'm looking forward to really utilising on EP.7 Career Mode especially, but hopefully I've got it down pretty well today. So this is the first ever time that's been used, so hopefully that's come out okay. Secondly, the reason I'm doing these in two Grand Prix in one episode, I know it's a slightly longer episode, but with FIFA 17 around the corner, I do want to make sure that this gets tied up with a bow on it by the time that comes out. And with sort of 13-14 races left to go, I figured the best way to do that is to put two Grand Prix in one race. So hopefully you're all okay with that. I also want to address, you've seen qualifying by the way, now we're in Q3 currently in Baku. I was quite pleased with how this was going, being as I'd never done this circuit before, with it being a new track of course, but I wanted to address, I'd had a comment, someone's been commenting a couple of times on previous videos, just wanted to address it. They were basically saying, I know you're on expert difficulty, but why not turn it up to ultimate? And I've replied to the comment, but I thought I'd address this in the video as well, in case anyone was wondering. Now, I know expert is a couple of tiers off the top level, but I am not an amazing F1 like racer on this game. I've never have been on F1, I'm pretty decent, but I'm not good enough to go into the ultimate difficulty. And I think personally it's worth me, how can I word this, it's worth me sacrificing finishing like at the back every time, because if I put it on ultimate I will be at the back every single time. I'd rather sacrifice having on a lower difficulty to make it a more entertaining season, which is what I think this has been so far. It's been a massively entertaining season, lots of twists and turns. We're not winning every race, we're winning some, we're sort of in the points consistently, but I think that makes for a more entertaining race. So we'll discuss this a bit more in a second. Let's just let the commentator set the scene for the first ever Azerbaijan Baku Grand Prix.
From Ayrton Senna's famous Donington win in 1993 to Stuart Grand Prix's only victory with Johnny Herbert at the Nürburgring, the European Grand Prix has some special entries into the Motorsport Hall of Fame. But it's time now to create new legends and new memories here on the shores of the Caspian Sea. Well then, after an exciting qualifying session yesterday, let's take a look at how the cars line up. It's Red Bull in pole position then, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Rosberg, Vettel, Kimi Raikkonen and Ricciardo, Perez, Bottas, Hülkenberg and Carlos Sainz, Massa, Magnussen, Jolyon Palmer and Kvyat, Ericsson, Nasser, Fernando Alonso and Jenson Button, Wehrlein and Harry Anto, Romain Grosjean and Esteban Gutierrez completes the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So here we are, lads, we are on the grid for the Baku Grand Prix. We have, as always, selected the lower pit stop strategy. We're on pole position. Can we get a good start? We actually get an absolutely blinding start. We pull off from the front. The 5 red lights, is it really well, coming to the first left-hand corner. And the one thing about Baku, we'll pick up what I was talking about just back up when we get into the qualifying of the next Grand Prix at Austria, if that makes sense. But we'll talk a bit more about this race now. And the track itself, I actually think it's a bit like Monaco, but a bit more forgiving in the fact that it's a street circuit. There's two walls around it constantly, which may sound really stupid because of course every track's got that, but if you know what I mean, it's a street circuit, the walls are always there, and you only have one mistake away from sort of putting the car in the wall and ending your race, whereas in proper circuits, as it were, like built circuits, if that makes sense, you can always, you've got run-off areas. On tracks like Monaco, Baku, I think there's another track that has it as well, but I can't think what it was. It could have been the European Grand Prix before Baku, actually, I want to say, but that they don't give any leeway. If you go off either way, you tend to be screwed essentially. But yeah, it's a bit like almost a more forgiving Monaco, because it's a bit wider, but it can still be very punishing. And how I was finding the track was that it suited the car very well in the first couple of sectors, but the final sector in particular was very punishing for us because it's a massive straight. You've got a couple of very quick, a left-hand and a right-hand turn where you don't have to lift off whatsoever. and that relied a lot on the pace of the car. And of course, with us being in a Red Bull, we're a lot quicker than most, but we're not quite as quick as the cars we're really competing against, and that of course are the Ferraris and the Red Bulls. I should say as well, I've stopped showing the sort of R&D objective part at the beginning. We had another update before this race. We are sitting third as far as the sort of update and R&D progress goes for this season. Ferrari have upped their car the most. Mercedes are still looking very strong, but we are very hot on the heels of them both. Seem to be improving the car very, very nicely. But this is the section I was talking about. Very quick left, very quick right, and then you have this humongous straight, and you can see here, this was the pattern of the race really. I think it's Hamilton that's just gone past us. We then have to rely on our braking ability, which seems to be a bit better than the Mercedes. Whether that's because of the difficulty level or not, I don't know. We managed to out-brake them going into that corner, take the inside line, and that was the pattern of how this race would go. We're going to jump forward to lap 8 now. You can see both Mercedes have actually got past me, held on through that first corner. We go a bit wide, avoiding all trouble, but it's actually Rosberg that comes out very poorly out of that little exchange. I think it's Hamilton must have just hung him out through our line, so we took the outside line, tried to keep it all very clean, very tidy, didn't want to take any damage, and yeah, Hamilton absolutely screwing over his teammate. But if there is ever such a thing as karma in Formula 1, that is something that will show itself in just a second. As we'll see, we're close behind Hamilton at this point. This section and the sort of first sector of the race, I really did feel like we had the run on the two Mercedes. Like I say, around the corners, we are not too bad whatsoever. But here comes the karma that I was just talking about. Slightly later on in this lap, we come round this left-hand corner, and as you'll see in just a second, Lewis Hamilton, engine failure, out of the race. Now this was turning into the perfect race weekend all of a sudden, because we qualified on pole. Hamilton was out of the race at this point, completely out, couldn't even pit, his engine had just blown, I think. And what this essentially meant was, because Hamilton is currently sitting top of the tree as far as the Drivers' Championship goes, everybody had the opportunity to close that gap, and we had the chance to build on what was a very good race win last time out, of course. Now we do enter the pits there very scruffily. We actually smash into the wall on the left hand side. That's the first time I'd actually been into the pits, because when I qualified and I've done a lap, I just click return to garage. I should have practiced that beforehand really, but we do seem to get away with it. We do actually lose a little bit of time there waiting for Hulkenberg, I think it is, to pull into the pits ahead of us. But all in all, this race right now was going, it couldn't have gone any more perfect really. I mean, Hamilton was out, Rosberg had that little knock as well, so both Mercedes were struggling, and we're actually going to jump forward in a second. Really, I mean, by the way, what a pass this is. Great manoeuvre past Raikkonen. I don't know who the other car was, it could have been Palmer there. Great manoeuvre to get past both of them up into, what position was that? That 7th position. And that's really the only action we saw for the rest of the race. We passed Massa in the pits, and with just 10 laps to go now, pretty much, well, yeah, 10 laps to go, bang on. We just had to manage the gap, and we did that extremely, extremely well. We're going to jump forward now to the final lap of the race, because like I say, as soon as we passed Massa in the pits, because of the difficulties that Rosberg had, there was a Hamilton in the race, of course, at this point. We just had to bring it home. This was literally the perfect race weekend. Other than the fact that we sort of lost first place to Hamilton a couple of times, other than that, we were never really challenged. Of course, both Mercedes had difficulties, as you've just seen, and we just brought it home. No problem whatsoever. It would be our 4th race win in this career mode. I believe we've won at Russia. We've won at, I can't name what races we've won at actually, but I'm pretty sure this was our 4th race win. And more importantly, this was the first time that we'd achieved back-to-back wins in this career mode. Not only that, Hamilton had gone out, so we closed the gap massively on first place in the drivers' standings, and you'll see in a second, the standings in general have closed up so much because of Hamilton's DNF in this race. He was absolutely dominating. It seemed to be either him or Rosberg that was winning every single race. Of course, we'd had the DNF in Monaco. This time we bounced back, 2 race wins in a row. You can see us here lifting the trophy on the podium. Absolutely delighted, and you'll see the drivers' standings in a second. We sort of closed the gap. We're still in 4th place. It's anybody's game right now. But once it's in the standings, we'll move on to the Austrian Grand Prix, race number 2 in today's episode, and hopefully we can go for a 3rd race win in a row. It's not off the cards yet, lads. Let's move to Austria. Let's get qualifying underway. So once again, lads, you join me in Q3 of qualifying. Well, of course it's Q3 of qualifying, that's what Q3 is, but you join me at Austria. We've just won the race you will have seen in Baku. 2 race wins in a row. Austria is a circuit that I know quite well. I actually think it's one of the more simple tracks on the F1 circuit really, because there's not too much to it. Again, it's a very, very quick circuit. In fact, it could be one of the quickest circuits in the whole calendar in my opinion, because you've got the massive home straight, and apart from sector 3, there's not really too much braking that needs to be done, as stupid as that might sound. Now, That means that we're going to struggle to keep up with the Mercedes on this track. I knew that going into it, and qualifying was showing just that. You can see we were in 3rd place as we started doing this lap, but we did in fact end up dropping back to 4th and then 5th in a second. Someone out-qualifies us once again, does a better lap. We managed to out-qualify them, though of course you'll see our quickest lap. You'll see in a second just where we are. But yeah, I was saying at the start about the green screen. Hopefully you're really enjoying it. This is something I'm really looking forward to optimising the most, you could say, in FIFA 17, so hopefully it's all working out well. You'll have to let me know, by the way, as well as the green screen, what you think of that, what you do think of having 2 Grand Prix in one. Like I said, I want to do it to sort of get this finished before FIFA 17, but if you really don't like having like a 15 to 20 minute video, which is I'm guessing what this is going to be, then let me know, and I'll just have to do them as separate races and just double upload them on any single day, because like I say, I want to get this done before the new FIFA comes out. But we're just on the F1 animation screen. Let's leave it to the commentators to set the scene for Austria and see how we get on.
What a beautiful backdrop to a motor race. We're here in the Styrian Mountains, of course, and they've watched over some cracking races throughout the history of this Grand Prix. Controversy, of course, think back to 2002, but also great joy. Do you remember Niki Lauda's historic home victory in 1984? Well then, after an exciting qualifying session yesterday, let's take a look at how the cars line up. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and Nico Rosberg completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Ricciardo and a Red Bull, Kimi Raikkonen and Vettel, Perez, Sainz, Grosjean and Jenson Button, Massa, Kvyat, Nico Hülkenberg and Wehrlein, Gutierrez, Magnussen, Felipe Nasser and Fernando Alonso, Haryanto and Bottas, Jolyon Palmer and Marcus Ericsson rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So we're back on the grid, lads, ahead of the Austrian Grand Prix, and I'm going to say it straight from the off here before anything happens. This race could not be any different to the Baku Grand Prix you've just seen. You've seen us qualify in 4th place off the grid. Don't get the greatest start, but we do manage to avoid anyone passing us. And it was always going to be a tricky race because the weather in practice and qualifying had been off and on and off and on. It was rain one session, sunshine the next, so I was expecting difficult conditions, and that is exactly what was predicted and exactly what came to fruition. When rain comes into play in F1, it's so hard to read, and it can either win you a race or lose you a race, or sort of you can pick up loads of places or drop loads of places through it. You'll have to see how it affects this race later on. But in 4th place, Ricciardo, our teammate, actually qualified us in this race. He was in 3rd. Not very often that's happened this season, ahead of him with the 2 Mercedes. Very surprising to me that the 2 Ferraris weren't up there in this race, because like I say, it's a very quick track. They've improved their car the most, so for Daniel Ricciardo and myself to out-qualify both Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen, and I forgot I had a blank then to who the 2 Ferrari drivers were for a second. I was extremely surprised. But quick circuit, we actually lose a little bit of time on Daniel Ricciardo in this final sector, but we do take this last corner fantastically well. And I was pretty happy with how the first lap had gone. We hadn't gained any positions, but after we were a bit sluggish coming off the line, I was quite grateful to still be in 4th place and have not lost any. But coming down this straight, and we absolutely gobble up Daniel Ricciardo here. We had a fantastic run out the last corner, like I've already mentioned, a lot better than Ricciardo. We did the same again coming into the first corner. He actually runs a little bit wide, kicks up a little bit of dirt, and I thought, Daniel, we are coming for you right now. You may be a teammate, but you're also a rival. I should also mention, talking about rivals, as we make a beautiful move up the inside of Daniel Ricciardo to take 3rd place. We've actually beaten Sebastian Vettel in the current rivalry that we had going on. So that rivalry's ended, and a new one's going to initiate in the next race. I don't know who that's going to be yet, but that rivalry all of a sudden was won. And that means that the only person that we're really competing against, apart from our own target of finishing 5th or above, was actually Daniel Ricciardo, which makes a change. But this is a bit chaotic right now. We've changed our strategy slightly to come into pit because our tyres were getting worn. We wanted to pit in here. Ricciardo came up the inside blocking us, so we ended up making, and I mean, if the pit stop in Baku was scrappy, this was even worse. We had to cut a bit of the grass to get in, but it was a vital importance that we did because the tyres were getting worn. And although we were managing to hold off Ricciardo, it was only a matter of time before we could have even had a blowout of who just got past, because he had much better pace than us at that time in the race. But you can see we dropped all the way back to 11th. I think we fall back as far as 12th actually. I think we're about to drop to 12th. Yeah, there it is. And God damn it, the phone's ringing. Wow, we haven't had that in a video for a while. Lads, forgive me for that. But you're joining us here just onto the next lap, I think this was. very exciting because we came round the first corner and Nico Rosberg had just come out the pits, and I was thinking to myself, you know what, this strategy might just work. If Rosberg's there, that means we are still on the pace with the two Mercedes. But what you'll see in a second is we make a nice pass around the inside here. We're just coming up behind Felipe Massa, who actually had a very good race in Baku. I think he got in the top 6, which is very impressive for him and for Williams. But yeah, we come round this corner here, and you'll notice now, because Rosberg is the car ahead of us, he's actually on the super soft tyres, and unfortunately we were not able to match the pace of Rosberg, because not only has he got the quicker car, he also had the much better tyre at the time. But this is where the race gets very, very interesting. We're pitting in here, coming into the pits, and no one had told me to pit in at this point, but it started to rain. We're on lap 23 of 36, 13 to go. I did this in a previous Grand Prix, I think it might have been Spain, where I saw the rain was coming. I decided to pit in early and try and get a leap on everybody else, put on the intermediates, and hopefully the fact that we've got on the strategy early can help us catch up with everyone, because we were sitting in 4th place at the time. We dropped back to 7th now because of the pits, I believe, but on real time on the track we were in 4th place once everyone had pitted in and everything, but we were a long way behind the top 3. Now this risk massively paid off, because we jumped forward all the way to lap 36. We passed a ton of cars in the pits. We're sitting in 4th place, which is, like I say, where technically we were anyway, but we managed to catch up all the way to Raikkonen, who would, without the rain, would have been gone for dust. Pass him on the very last lap. We then have a couple of back markers to negotiate. Well, it's only the one actually, I can't remember who it was now, but we passed the back marker, and it was just a job of keeping Kimi Raikkonen behind us. But I was absolutely ecstatic, because not only have we now potentially got a podium as long as we can bring it home, we'd picked up a place where we started, and we'd actually done the strategy really, really well. We'd actually pulled off the strategy, which is something that, and when I say pulled off the strategy, I mean we'd done it ourselves. No one had told us to pit in. We took the initiative, we took the risk, and it paid off big time. We're coming home now, we're in the last corner with a podium finish, and I've got to say our form right now is absolutely sublime. That's a race win, 2 in a row, and then a podium. Might even be, was it 2 or 3 race wins in a row? I think it's 2, and a 3rd place podium. We are really picking up, and although actually because of this result and the 2 Mercedes coming ahead of us, we technically lose ground after the last race on the race leader, we are still a hell of a lot closer than we were at the start of today's episode. I believe we're 19 points behind, but a race win in Baku and a podium in Austria after some testing weather conditions. I am extremely, extremely happy. But that just about wraps up this episode, lads. Like I say, let me know how the green screen came along. Let me know what you feel about the double uploads. Make sure to leave a massive thumbs up on this video if you did enjoy it, and I will speak to you all in the next video. Hope you all have a fantastic night. Nidge out.
The drivers coming out now to collect their trophies. It's yet more silverware to take back to their base in Brackley after another excellent Grand Prix.
Yo, he's Nidge, plays with big games and player reviews are getting insane. He entertains while he elevates, his video quality resonates. On career mode, he got lots of vids uploading off and he's rocking it. He's got the confidence in all his commentaries. Videos range, they often vary. Got need for speed and a road to glory. Just watching vids, hey, you know the story. The content is underrated, I'm understating, so don't ignore the like and subscribe button to support the channel that keeps running. It takes 1 second, like it's free, it costs nothing. Peace.